As the crackdown on immigrants continues across the country, Shadow President Elon Musk is now openly calling for more white immigrants. Yeah, because of course, right?
The Republican Party's racist.
Now, this has to do with his native South Africa, where black people remain the overwhelming land-owning minority, despite being the ethnic majority. Now, this led South African President Cyril Ramaphosa to signing a bill into law which would allow the government to take farmland, even in some cases, without compensation. And so be a case-by-case basis, right? Now, that said, there are constitutional protections in South Africa against the expropriation without compensation that are in place. So very likely, if they actually did do this without compensation, there would be legal challenges to it. So there are some protections there. And I happen to disagree with the policy of not compensating landowners after doing what is essentially taking land. Okay. But that said, you got to understand that the reason that they're doing this policy is because that is exactly how these white landowners got control of the majority of the farmland in the first place. They basically stole it from black people and then prevented them from being able to own it. Okay, so there were very racist laws in place. Now, that said, I don't think that the two wrongs are going to make a right here, when it comes to taking it without compensation, right? But, and I'm saying that even in the pursuit of justice, right? And I do think that justice is overdue. I think there is a problem, okay? Poverty and unemployment are huge, problems among the majority, which is, again, black majority, right? There needs to be a fix for that. There does need to be justice, but again, it's a politically charged, very nuanced issue, right? And a lot of it stems from colonialism. There's race relations. There's apartheid, obviously, but there's also the issue of minority and majority rights involved, okay? Now, that said, the ruling ANC party's main goal, according to Reuters, is to try to transfer at least 30% of farmland owned by white farmers back to the black farmers by 2030. And if they can do it in ways which involve, being able to fairly compensate those white landowners for the retransfer of that land, okay, great. And the hope there is that this can right some historical wrongs. Now, that said, you've got Trump basically calling it a human rights violation, which is funny, and threatened to cut funding to the country in response. Now, Ramaphosa, he responded to Trump's threat by saying, hey, look, South Africa is a constitutional democracy that is deeply rooted in the rule of law, justice, and equality. The South African government has not confiscated any land. We look forward to engaging with the Trump administration over our land reform policy and issues of bilateral interest. He also added that while the U.S. was a key strategic political and trade partner, it did not provide any significant funding to South Africa besides a major HIV/AIDS relief program. Now, that said, Donald Trump has already gutted that program. So what real source of funding can be cut off to South Africa at this point? I mean, and that's if they were actually doing the thing that they said that Trump said they were doing, which apparently they have not. So that said, Musk responded to this by saying, specifically Ramaphosa, in his statement saying, why do you have openly racist ownership laws? Well, here's the thing. You realize this came as a reaction to previous racist ownership laws. Okay? But it was just in the other direction, where you had, under apartheid, the minority-run government blocking black people, the majority, from owning farms after having forcibly removed them. if you weren't calling out those laws then what business are you to calling out these laws now? Mainly because, and the reason that Musk probably didn't call out any of these laws prior, the ones that barred black people from owning farmland, is because, like a lot of wealthy white South Africans, they benefited from that system, benefited from apartheid. Okay, so now a reply under Musk's Ramaphosa rebuttal then called for, hey, why not encourage white immigration to Europe? Quote, white South Africans are being persecuted for their race in their home country. Now, look, what we're talking about here is, again, white, wealthy landowners in South Africa. Okay. And basically what it is we just want to get some justice here. Okay. To restore what was unfairly stolen from these black farmers. That was their land. Okay. But it doesn't matter to them, right? It doesn't matter. He also says, also white South Africans are one of the few population groups that are fiscally positive when immigrating to Europe. We should allow more immigration of white South Africans, to which Musk had replied, yes, yes. Now, why is it, are they considered to be more fiscally positive? Oh, because they stole the land and the wealth. That's why. And again, this is an upper crust of very wealthy white landowners. Not every white person in South Africa is a wealthy white landowner. Okay, so let's put that out. Putting that out there. Okay, and I'm assuming too that the non-wealthy white South Africans would also be welcomed, or would they not? That is the question, right? That is the question. But again, the South African government is attempting to reverse all of this, right? And now that they're doing that, suddenly people like Elon Musk are pro-immigrant. Well, yeah, we're pro-immigration, but only a certain kind of immigrant, you see. Not the ones that are fleeing political violence in Central America or climate change in the Caribbean. No. Oh, no. It's only for wealthy white South Africans like Elon Musk. Now, look, I would say it'd be different if, hey, wow, there's actually a genocide going on here in South Africa. And yes, we should probably take in refugees. Then I'd be like, yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. But there is no genocide going on in South Africa. No, this is, again, the government, and I hope they don't have to use it, saying, well, we can go in and we can do basically eminent domain and come and take these farms and redistribute them, right? I hope they don't have to. I hope that some of these wealthy white landowners, decide to, you know what? Yeah, we'll take the payout. We've already benefited very, very, very well from what we have in place. And yeah, sure, why not? But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But look, getting back to Musk, right? This is a case of Musk saying, well, these people look just like me, therefore I must protect them. And they want to claim that they're not white supremacists. I mean, every other type of immigrant is, other than what white Europeans, basically, is labeled immediately as, you're dangerous. Oh, you're poisoning the blood of this country. That's something that Trump actually said. But when it comes to wealthy white South Africans, oh man, they're totally fine. We should totally bring them over. I mean, they've got wealth, and they're victims. They're the refugees. We should immediately open our borders for them and their money, but mostly their money. Okay, and of course, for Musk, it's like, oh, we must protect the white culture. Understand that this is the only type of immigration that Trump and Musk are okay with. It's the kind that they want. And it's the kind that they've always been focused on, to bring in more white people and screw everyone else. The Treasury Department is being sued by a coalition of groups after appointee Scott Bessent handed over full control of the computer system to unelected members of a non-government group, the Department of Government Efficiency, which again, is not a real department, okay? Now, the suit was filed by the Public Citizen Litigation Group, State Democracy Defenders Fund, the Alliance for Retired Americans, the American Federation of Government Employees, and the Service Employees International Union. So you've got union groups and pro-democracy groups. Now, they put out a statement saying, the Department of Treasury maintains the sensitive personnel and financial information of millions of Americans, and federal laws protect such data from improper disclosure and misuse, including by barring disclosure to individuals who lack a lawful and legitimate need for it. Now, yeah, that's their statement, and look, they're right. There's no reason for these people to have a lawful and legitimate need for American citizens' personal information, their banking information, their social security numbers, things like that. Okay, the payment information, their banking. They don't need that information. Why? Why? So, look, this is Musk's forcible takeover of the Treasury, which is essentially a coup. Okay, he's got the money now. And he's put his lackeys in charge of the payment system of the United States. Social Security, Medicare, all the other programs, grants, they're now under control of people who work for Elon Musk, who is a private citizen, but now considered, thanks to Trump, a special government employee. So he wasn't really hired, mainly because he couldn't get security clearance, let's be honest, but he still has some powers. In fact, according to Cal McClanahan, the executive director of the National Security Counselors, special government employees are sort of like super volunteers. They're more empowered, but less encumbered. Oh, that's exactly what we need. Yeah, well, we need a ketamine-fueled super volunteer running our payment system for $6 trillion, okay, worth of payment. That's horrifying. I don't understand why more people's hair isn't on fire about this, all right? Mine would be, but it's gone. It's already gone. Burnt right off. Okay, now, worse than Musk, though, are the people that are working for him, that are running this stuff, okay? They've been given unprecedented access to all of our personal information, and a lot of them happen to be white nationalists and groypers. I kid you not. Over the weekend, Wired reported that there are 6 young men, all apparently between the ages of 19 and 24, that are running this. One of them, Edward Korestein, who recently changed his handle on X from Big Balls. That's right, Big Balls has our social security numbers now. Okay, he basically changed his handle and made it private. In fact, all of these people have decided to hide themselves, to scrub themselves off social media now that people know who they are. And Musk is like, oh, if you talk about these people, if you out these people, you have committed a crime. No, you guys have committed a crime. You forcibly took over the nation's payment system and gave it to unelected, incel groypers. How's that not a crime? And then, of course, you have Marco Ellis, who has been granted read and write access to the Treasury Department systems responsible for nearly all the payments made by the U.S. government. 3 sources told Wired, giving him the ability to write code on the highly sensitive payment automation manager and secure payment system at the Bureau of the Fiscal Service. What couldn't you do with that access? Pretty much anything you want. One source with the knowledge of the system said you could do anything with these privileges, adding that there is no conceivable reason to grant him the ability to change code for the purposes of rooting out fraudulent payments or analyzing disbursement flow. Remember, that is supposed to be the whole idea behind Doge. Oh, we're just rooting out the corruption here, and we're going to try and save some money, right? Well, why do you need read and write access to the payment system in order to just review, like, oh, we think that we probably shouldn't be making payments to this? No, they can unilaterally go, suspended. But wait, that's Congress's job because Congress already allocated the money. They passed the laws for this. Doesn't matter. It's worse, though. These admin privileges would give users the ability to bypass any security measures and potentially make irreversible changes to those systems, which researcher Nathan Tankis said was extremely complex and could easily be disrupted by someone who didn't know what they're doing. So, yeah, this is the incoming economic collapse caused by Big Balls or his friend accidentally going, oopsie, I accidentally deleted a piece of code. And now I just crashed the entire U.S. economy and the world economy. Whoopsie. I didn't mean to do that. How do I undo it? I have no idea.
Whoopsie.
Great. This is great. Wow. Now, look, Tankus says there's specific code which tells you where to direct specific payments in specific ways in the structures and why they're structured in the way that they are. It requires deep contextual knowledge. Knowledge that these people certainly do not have. One's barely out of college. This is a potential disaster on an epic scale. Okay. In fact, a current IT employee of the Bureau of Fiscal Service told Tankis, quote, this level of unchecked access is critically dangerous to the economy and the government. Read privileges on its own still would have left room for catastrophe, but read and write is apocalyptic. Apocalyptic. This sounds bad. I mean, not just bad, but this is 5-alarm fire bad. I mean, read and write. I don't know. What's to prevent them from directing money anywhere they want or just cutting it off for people that they don't like? I mean, it's not just about handing personal data off to Doge, right? And by the way, a federal IT worker told Wired that technically I don't see why this couldn't happen. You know, just personal information, payment information being handed off to Doge. Now, this same person was like, if you would have asked me a week ago, I'd have told you that this kind of thing would never in a million years happen. But who knows? But now who the F knows? Yeah, who knows indeed? No one. No one knows what's going on. It is absolute chaos. This is not normal. This is not usual. This is exactly what we have been warning you guys that was going to happen. It was going to be absolute chaos, freaking anarchy, but not in the good way. This is bad. This is so bad. And it gets worse, of course. Musk had been talking about putting the entire Treasury on a crypto blockchain. Unnamed people close to Musk told the Financial Newswire that there has been talk about using a blockchain to track federal spending, secure data, make payments, and manage buildings. You know who's massively invested in crypto blockchain? Elon Musk, Donald Trump, all the crypto bros, Peter Thiel, all these people doubling down on crypto. And if they put the entire U.S. Treasury on a blockchain and make it crypto, that's it. That's the end of our economy. It's gone. That's it. I mean, this is, once again, complete and utter disaster.
Bing, 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 boom. It's gone.
Oh, your Social Security retirement? Gone. I don't know what happened. It got pissed away by the crypto blockchain. Oops. I mean, this is horrific. And obviously, it's why they're being sued. Okay? Now, the problem here is they don't seem to care about the law. And it makes me very, very worried the amount of damage that they're going to do unless someone is able to stop them. President Donald Trump is getting pushback online for setting up a so-called sovereign wealth fund. What is that? It's basically a government investment fund. Okay. Now, they're often run by a central bank. They invest in an array of assets, including stocks, bonds, precious metals, and generally tend to be tied with oil. Okay. And so you've got these Persian monarchies that are very, very famous for setting up, wealth funds based on oil. Okay. Now, the goal of a sovereign wealth fund, which is commonly but not always found in countries with budget surpluses, little or no debt, or income from oil, can be varied. Sometimes they're used to stabilize government revenue, to help position a country as a financial center, or to provide for future generations, as is the case partially in Norway. Now, that said, there's obvious reasons why this wouldn't work here. Number one, we're the world's reserve currency. Why would we need a sovereign wealth fund? Secondly, we do not have a budget surplus. Okay, we're kind of in a little bit of a national debt. Okay, and you could thank tax cuts for the rich for that one, because that's the main driver of our debt. George W. Bush had a surplus when he took over, immediately pissed it away to unfunded wars and massive tax cuts for the rich. Trump managed to do even more tax cuts for the rich. And so now, massive amounts of debt. Of course. Now, the other thing here is, how do we know that if he does set up a sovereign wealth fund, that it's not just going to be used as a way to funnel money from the government into the fund because, they have the payment system, okay? Or funnel it to, himself or his rich friends. Because it seems like having a fund in control of Donald Trump bypassing Congress would immediately be exploited for him and his friends to just rob us all blind, to take all the money from the Treasury, which they have access to. But he says, no, we're going to do it to buy TikTok. What do you mean? You're going to buy TikTok with it? And you're going to basically turn it into U.S. state-funded media? How is that any better than the accusations that it's Chinese funded state media? That wouldn't make it better. No, but their excuse probably be like, well, it's United States now, so that automatically makes it better. No, it doesn't. It wouldn't make it better at all. I mean, it was. And by the way, okay, those issues aside, it's unclear how you would get the money into the fund in the first place. Now he says, well, it'd be funded through tariffs and other intelligent things. First of all, that's not how tariffs work, okay? Tariffs are paid by the importer, who then pass on the cost to the consumer. So it wouldn't be paid by other countries. It would be paid for by average people, which is a tax, okay? So basically, he says, well, we're going to fill the sovereign wealth fund, which is, going to be basically accessible by me, okay, and only me. We're going to fill that fund from essentially taxes from average people through our tariffs. And then what? It is basically just a way for him to funnel money from working people to himself. Wow. I mean, it's clear robbery. Okay. Now, social media, of course, reacted to this pretty strongly. One person wrote, "For those who haven't figured out what's going on yet, I will tell you, Leon has control," meaning Elon, "of the Treasury because he will move all our money away from federal departments, agencies, and the Treasury and put it into the new sovereign wealth fund. That fund is not regulated by Congress. There is no congressional oversight," which is true. All of this is true. Only the president and anyone he appoints can release those funds. He is effectively taking away Congress's power, which is supposed to be the power of the purse. That includes the Republicans in Congress, too. They will have nothing to do, and he is effectively neutering them. Well, I mean, to be fair, they would still have the money, from their massive donors. So, now he adds, this is not in Project 2025. That's why he is having Elon do this. He's basically screwing not every single person in this country, but also TPUSA and Heritage, which would be funny if it wasn't a direct robbery from all of us. Okay. But betraying the people behind Project 2025. There's something about lying down with dogs. There's a lesson in there. Okay. Now there's another, and this, again, it is speculation, right? But boy, it sounds bad already. Now another head asked, remember when Malaysia created the Sovereign Wealth Fund and their head of government and his businessman friend stole $4.5 billion from it to fund political campaigns and extravagant parties because they ended any regulatory bureaucracy that would have stopped them? Just wondering, huh? Well, it's almost as if something like that could be happening here, but there's no way, right? Yeah. There's more. It's financially irresponsible to develop a sovereign wealth fund when the nation is in so much debt. Any surplus fund should go to pay down the debt and reduce the interest owed by the taxpayer. Seems more like a place to collect bribes and embezzle funds. Well, yes, it's the perfect place. Again, only controllable by Trump. No oversight, nothing. There's more. Sovereign wealth fund without congressional approval is more theft from U.S. taxpayers. This is bad. Oh, it could always get worse. Another says, so we're going to have to create a sovereign wealth fund to buy TikTok? I thought the GOP believed that government shouldn't get involved in private companies or be picking winners and losers in the market. They never had any core beliefs whatsoever. Just anything to enrich themselves, hold on to power, and enrich their donors. Of course. Another says, the thing about the Sovereign Wealth Fund that Trump created yesterday by executive order is that it is the means to steal from the U.S. Treasury and put that money into a place that only he controls. I think we pretty much got the whole point of this. And again, having the access to the payment system through Elon Musk means, yeah, they can pretty much do whatever they want. That's it. Doesn't matter to them, that it's illegal. Laws no longer matter to them. I mean, you've seen that. You've seen that through all the illegal executive orders they have put out. The taking over of these different agencies, pushing out government workers. We're in a lawless society now. Norms no longer matter. Laws no longer matter. For them, only the robbery matters. And guess what? We're all about to get robbed. On Monday, the president of El Salvador offered to house U.S. citizens in its prisons. In a statement posted on his Twitter account, El Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele writes this, quote, "We have offered the United States of America the opportunity to outsource part of its prison system. We are willing to take in only convicted criminals, including convicted U.S. citizens, into our mega prison, CCOT, in exchange for a fee. The fee would be relatively low for the U.S., but significant for us, making our entire prison system sustainable." Okay, first off, mega prison. I already do not like the sound of that. And U.S. citizen, oh yes, we're going to take in only the convicted criminals. By the way, this would also include undocumented immigrants, right? But in addition to U.S. citizens. Yikes. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who received that offer when he visited, called it the most unprecedented and extraordinary migratory agreement anywhere in the world. Wait, you're not seriously considering this, are you, Marco? He said no country's ever made an offer of friendship such as this. That's not what I would call it. I would call it dictators of a feather, okay? Look, when President Bukele got into office, he had violated people's civil rights. Yes, he was able to crack down on crime and gang activity, but by breaking people's civil rights, okay? So he also, locked up a bunch of people. The prison population shot up huge. And, of course, people going into that prison, CCOT, it's one of the worst prison systems in the hemisphere. Okay, it's bad. It's so bad that the State Department had an advisory on it saying that El Salvador's prison and detention centers conditions are, quote, harsh and dangerous. They also talked about overcrowding, which constitutes a serious threat to prisoners' health and lives. It's even worse. They said that in many facilities, provisions for sanitation, potable water, ventilation, temperature control, and lighting are inadequate or non-existent. That's how bad it is. CCOT has also been described as one of the most ruthless prison facilities in the world, with human rights groups calling for its closure over various human rights violations. And yet the president of El Salvador is like, oh yeah, no, we stuffed a whole bunch of people in there, and guess what? For a low fee, you can stuff people in here too. Undocumented immigrants, you can shove them in there. I mean, you're already sending them Gitmo anyway. So why not, save a little bit of a trip, do a little bit of a detour, stuff them into our horrible prison system. And as a bonus, you can throw in your violent criminals. Great. I mean, look, here's what I fear will happen. That it will turn into a prison camp for people that Donald Trump doesn't like. Okay? And I'm not exactly saying that they're all going to be the violent criminals. Okay? Because he says all this stuff about undocumented immigrants, we're getting rid of the violent ones, we're getting rid of the criminal ones. When in reality, no, that's not true. There's a huge percentage of the people that he is deporting right now have no criminal record whatsoever. So that was a lie. And so, yeah, I don't trust that Trump wouldn't throw his political opponents into CCOT, the worst prison imaginable. Okay. I mean, this is really, really scary. Okay. Now, that said, currently the government is not allowed to deport American citizens. Okay, but when has the law stopped Donald Trump? Okay, he's not exactly following the laws on everything else, so what would stop him? That's the problem here. And the scariest thing about this, by the way, is that, look, if Donald Trump does manage to agree with this, or Marco Rubio, whatever, it's going to feed into something that his FBI nominee, Kash Patel, had previously talked about. This was during a 2022 appearance on Steve Bannon's War Room, right? Now, in that podcast, he argued that not only should officials at every level be ideologically aligned with Donald Trump, okay? So loyalty tests, everything, right? Everyone who works for him should be 100% aligned with his goals. Let me tell you what. Okay, but what if you're not? But you're still doing your job, right? Well, it doesn't matter. If you're not, you should be thrown in prison. Quote, and then personnel, is policy, and not just at the principal level. You got to go down 2, 3, 4 levels down. The undersecretaries, the assistant secretaries, the deputies, the chiefs of staff. They all have to be people who agree with the commander-in-chief and don't believe that they can overcome a commander-in-chief just because they think they're saving America. That's not how the chain of command works. All right, again, we're talking about government workers, okay? Government workers in the civilian government workforce, which, again, that's not the chain of command, okay? Now, he says, it didn't work like that when you were in the Navy, and it hasn't changed. And so we need to implement personnel across the board, not just the military, across the board that follows the commander-in-chief's process and policies, and that's the democratic process. Oh, I love how you talked about a democratic process. No. He said anyone violating that should be thrown out of government and maybe even put in jail. But we need a strong Department of Justice to do that. Well, Kash Patel looking to run the FBI, okay? And he is saying loyalty to the commander-in-chief should override any independent judgment, any legal obligations, or even the desire to protect the country from enemies, foreign and domestic, okay? No, it should be all loyalty to Donald Trump. And if not, if you can't do that, prison for you, sir. And perhaps one of the worst prisons overseas in El Salvador. One of the worst places imaginable. And that's if you don't follow Trump's illegal orders, which he is doing. He is putting out illegal orders. A lot of his executive orders are actually being challenged in court for their illegality. Okay, for example, getting rid of birthright citizenship. That's a constitutional right that has to be changed in the Constitution. Trump is ignoring the Constitution. That's an illegal order, but he put it out anyway. And so he's already put out a ton of unconstitutional orders like that. And if civil servants end up fearing the legal consequences for refusing these patently illegal orders, it will end the checks and balances in the government. And that's what this is designed to do. Okay? I mean, look, there's only one way to describe this, and that's authoritarianism. Okay? This man wants a regime that punishes dissent, rewards blind loyalty, and prioritizes Trump over the Constitution and the country. These civil servants have all taken pledges, loyalty oaths to the Constitution, not to one particular president. And they are not the same thing. Okay? And that's the thing. Again, it's really, really frightening. Look, Trump doesn't even have to take the deal to put Americans into El Salvadorian prisons, right? To make this kind of thing a reality, right? To scare people enough. It would, however, be extra incentive to scare people into compliance. And that's what's going on right now, is he is overwhelming people on purpose and scaring them into compliance. And already you have people in the government that are afraid enough of what's already going on, and they should be. They should be afraid. I mean, the media is afraid, obviously, and they're playing ball. They're complying. The Democratic Party is afraid, and they're also complying. They're passing Trump's nominees, voting for them, which is ridiculous. And this is all while he and Elon Musk together are setting fire to the country and the Constitution. We are in a full-blown crisis. Shadow President Elon Musk has made the suggestion that, you know what we should do? We should just completely ignore all the laws and federal regulations. I'm not kidding. Regulations are laws, by the way. Now, this was during a public call shortly after midnight on Monday morning, where Musk called for the wholesale removal of regulations. Quote, regulations basically should be default gone. Not default there, default gone. Oh, and if it turns out if we missed the mark on a regulation, we can always add it back in. Right. The idea that they would ever add a regulation back in after removing one is laughable. No, they'd never do that. But again, it would be laughable, but the implications are incredibly serious. We'll get to that in a minute. But he continues. He said, these regulations are added willy-nilly all the time. No, they're usually added after a need is shown. Okay. After an accident or a crisis. But anyway, he says, so we've got to do a wholesale spring cleaning of regulation and get the government off the backs of everyday Americans so people can get things done. He added later, if the government has millions of regulations holding everyone back, it's not freedom. We've got to restore freedom. Now, look, I'm an everyday American. I can't think of any regulations that are holding me down. I'm not near wealthy. Okay. So I got to ask, what everyday average person is being crushed by regulation? I can't think of one. But you know who is affected by regulations? Rich people, corporate CEOs like himself. Now, I would say that Elon Musk is nowhere near a average, regular, everyday working person. I mean, he's literally the wealthiest man in the world. Okay, what does Elon Musk know about the experiences of everyday Americans? He doesn't know any. Again, I'm an everyday American. I do normal things. I go grocery shopping. I work in my house when I have, when I have the ability, when I have the time, when I can afford it. Okay, when we're not dealing with freaking trade wars that are hiking up the cost of lumber. Okay, I mean, yeah, the only thing that makes me not average is that I pay an inordinate amount of attention to politics and then give my opinion on it on camera. I'm not going on ketamine binges and paying people to play Path of Exile 2 for me, all right? Which explains why I'm still not max level. So, hey, I'm doing my best, okay? Doing my best. I don't have infinite time here. I should do after work. I'm also not a special government employee or worker that's been trying to do a hostile takeover of our democracy and kill regulations. I can't just go and buy Twitter and turn it into a propaganda arm for the Republican Party, for fascists. Okay? I can't do any of that stuff. All right? Look, and part of apparently why he wants to do these takeovers is so he could kill regulations that cost him a little bit of extra money. That's it. Regulations, by the way, they're just rules. They're rules that prevent companies from taking advantage of their workers, poisoning the environment, or just killing their workforce. Okay? There are safety rules that are in place meant to try to prevent workers from dying on the job. And he wants to undo all of those. In fact, they're talking about in this meeting how, this is our chance. This is our chance. So this was with Vivek Ramaswamy and a couple of senators. Ramaswamy, who's also on the call, said this: I think it's possible now. It's actually possible, thanks to Trump's second term and a conservative-dominated Supreme Court. You understand that they were waiting for this moment to completely try to undo all regulations. And now they're going to try it. Joni Ernst, who's a senator. Let me get to Musk first, where he said, if it's not possible now, it'll never be possible. This is our shot. This is the best hand of cards we're ever going to have. And if we don't take advantage of this best hand of cards, it's never going to happen. So we're going to do it. To which Joni Ernst of Iowa said, now or never. Understand that this has been the goal the whole time. Okay, to get in a position of power so they could just completely undo the rules on themselves. Rules that, might prevent them from being just a little bit richer. Okay, rules that prevent them from completely taking advantage of their workforce. I mean, yeah, there it is. There it is. Musk would personally benefit from the ability to pick and choose any regulations that he wants to follow. And that would make him so much money. So much money. I mean, does he really care if we would end up having another triangle shirtwaist fire that kills hundreds of workers? No, it doesn't matter to him. It doesn't matter to him. No. I mean, do you remember? Well, you don't, right? Because we've lived with regulations, but before the time where we had these regulations, it was common practice for employees, right, to deal with locked doors on stairwells and exits. Why would they have to deal with these locked doors? The employers would lock them. Why? In order to prevent these workers from taking any unauthorized breaks and to reduce theft. So, we got some, we got to maximize productivity. And we're sure some of these people are stealing from us. So we're just going to lock all the doors and the exits. Hey, if there's a fire or something like that, well, there was a fire. And as a result, workers at that factory, Triangle Shirtwaist, could not escape from the burning building. They end up either burning to death, suffocating, or dying from jumping from the high windows. Okay? But surely, of course, they would have sprinkler systems, right? No, they didn't have sprinkler systems. There were no fire regulations. So these companies weren't required to have any sprinklers. None in the building. No fire suppression measures whatsoever. Understand that I'm telling you this because this is what Elon Musk and his friends want to take us back to the Gilded Age, where corporations had all the power, the wealthy had all the power, and workers had none. Our lives were literally at the mercy of these corporations. You didn't have unions, you didn't have worker protections, you didn't even have child labor laws back then. Oh, guess what Republicans have been trying to do in the States? Roll back child labor laws. Okay? Go after unions. Okay? One of the biggest unions, the Deemsters. Okay? Defanged. That's what one of the one of the first acts of the Trump administration was to reduce their power. Okay? And the power of all these unions. So much for being pro-worker, right? There was no laws back then stopping, these companies from polluting the rivers, the air, and the food that we eat. Okay, they would put sawdust and literal animal feces into the food, kind of fluff it up, right? I mean, understand that what's going on right now would be a complete rollback of society to the Gilded Age, which was a time of great corruption and massive concentration of wealth at the top. I thought Trump said he was going to get rid of the corruption. He's going to drain the swamp. No, he's going to drain the swamp right into his pocket. Okay? And he's going to allow, essentially, the swamp, which is the corporate interests, to take over. And back then, by the way, you had huge wealth concentrations, even more so than you had right now, which is already bad enough. From 1860 to 1900, the wealthiest 2% of American households owned more than a third of the nation's wealth, while the top 10% owned roughly 3/4 of it. The bottom 40% had no wealth at all. In terms of property, the wealthiest 1% owned 51%, while the bottom 44% owned 1.1%. As far as worker protections, American industry had the highest rate of accidents in the world. In 1889, railroads employed 704,000 men, of whom 20,000 were injured, and 1,972 were killed on the job. The U.S. was also the only industrial power to have no workers' compensation program there to support injured workers. So you get injured at work, you get nothing, and then lose your job, and then lose your ability to survive, to feed yourself, because there were no, social safety nets back then. Now, what do you think Musk is going to do with those? Those social safety nets are going to be absolutely shredded. Musk has the payment system. His allies, Doge, they're looking for savings, looking for things to cut. What do you think they're going to go after? Military spending or food stamps? No, we are speeding towards the Gilded Age right now with Donald Trump's blessing. And Congress is literally doing absolutely nothing to stop this massive corporate Musk takeover of our entire economy and a rollback of every piece of pro-worker legislation and every workers' safety regulation that has been passed since then. We are barreling backwards to the past. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.